The question on the table is, should there be another landmark added to Washington, D.C.? President Trump says yes. He wants to put an arch, like that iconic one in Paris, the Arc de Triomphe, right here at the existing Memorial Circle.
That's Lady Liberty. Lady, did you ever hear of Lady Liberty?
Last night at the White House,
you have three sizes. That would be the largest one. This is just a model of what it would look like in either of the three, any of the three sizes.
President Trump showing off the latest item on his wish list, an arch, kind of like that famous one over in Paris. He says Memorial Circle, which is across the Potomac River, but still within the border of D.C., has long been a prime spot for a monument.
For years and years it sat, and every time somebody rides over that beautiful bridge going right to the Lincoln Memorial, that's so beautiful, right? It's, they literally say, something's supposed to be here. Well, it could even be more than that. Probably, possibly, assuming we can do that. You know, we're building the Ark, and maybe we use it for the Ark. Looks like we might. You know, we're going to be building the Ark, and we've raised a lot of money for the ballroom, so maybe we'll put... The Ark is going to be incredible for Washington, D.C., so maybe we use it for the Ark.
Well, staying with the US President Donald Trump, he has not ruled out the possibility of seeking a third term in office, but has conceded that he won't be running as vice president. Some of his supporters, and even Joe Siracusa, told us about this possibility in the program yesterday, floating the idea of a VP run as a way to circumvent the US Constitution, which bars the president from running for a third term. This is what the president had to say about that possibility.
And I think it's too cute. Yeah, I would rule that out because it's too cute. I think the people wouldn't like that. It's too cute. It's not, it wouldn't be right. Well, we have great people. Well, I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that. I would love to do it.
What about Marco Rubio blushing, by the way, just then? Stop it, Mr. President. It's unclear what method Trump would use to try and run again as president, but just last week, as you can see there, the Trump ally Steve Bannon said there was a plan in place to secure the 79-year-old a third presidential term. But how? Well, we still don't know.
How do you see the peace deal and what Donald Trump has been able to achieve in his second term?
Yeah, well, first off, Rita, it's really good to see you again. I feel like we're old friends at this point, which doesn't seem possible, but the last time I saw you was right here in this city in 2000. It was February of 2019, and the world has changed awful lot since then.
That's just a memory hole, that entire little COVID era. Because as you know, in Melbourne here, we had 6 lockdowns. We went quite crazy.
You guys did. I was in California, and I was looking at you guys like, boy, this is a bit much. But all of that aside, look, this has been an unbelievable week, not only for Donald Trump, but the United States of America, the Middle East, and I would say literally for the entire globe. I am not one of the people that's going to sit here and tell you that this is peace in the way that we all want peace to be, like the end of a movie where everyone's going to be happy and we enter utopia together. But what peace can be in the Middle East is, at least for now, the end of the fighting. At least the Israelis have the hostages back. At least the Gazans will have a chance to rebuild, and they're the ones that are going to have to deal with de-radicalization and getting rid of whatever remnants of Hamas are. But I would say in the broader Middle East, the idea that Israel is there. And if the Arab states can accept it, if the Houthis can stop shooting rockets, Hezbollah's largely been destroyed in Lebanon, the Iranians lost their airspace in basically 24 hours in the quickest war that anyone ever, there were all these people screaming about World War III. It was a 12-day war. So the enemies of Israel have realized, hey, they're there. And if you reach your hand out in peace, you will find a hand outstretched to you. That has become very clear. I think there will be an extension of the Abraham Accords.
And so whether we're talking about trade, whether we're talking about securing our borders, building up our military, or bringing peace around the world, this president is doing it. And then, of course, we heard that he could be meeting with Kim Jong-un. This would be a third meeting. This would be a possibility possibility to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. Donald Trump, of course, we remember walking over the DMZ during his first term in office. It was historic. It was incredible. We're just so lucky, I think, as a country and really as a world to have President Trump in the role he is right now. Obviously, you see all the positive that has already come out of this trip.
But Democrats are slamming the ballroom's construction amid a 3-week government shutdown and calling for President Trump to stop.
He should stop the wreckage of the White House, creating this Marie Antoinette ballroom for the billionaires and the CEOs and for all of his friends.
Legal scholars are raising concerns after President Trump said he's considering a third term. The 22nd Amendment explicitly limits a president to 2 elected terms, or 10 years, saying, quote, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. For more on that, let's bring in ABC contributor Kim Whaley, legal expert and professor at the University of Baltimore Law School. So, Kim, that was a lot of words that I just read, but break this down. Is there any wiggle room in here, in the language you see in the Constitution, for President Trump to seek a third term?
Well, Diane, there's always wiggle room for creative lawyers. And I think the argument is that the word elected to 2 terms maximum means literally elected, not served. So the argument he's saying is that he can serve more than 2 terms, so long as he's not elected at the top of the ticket. For example, if he is elected as a vice president, J.D. Vance as president could resign and he could move to the position of president. That's not being elected. The problem with that is the 12th Amendment says specifically that if someone's ineligible to be president, they cannot be a vice president. But at the end of the day, this doesn't really hinge on what the Constitution says. It's more on, if the Republican Party decides to put him on the ballot on a state-by-state basis, who's going to stop that process? There's no mechanism. If Donald Trump is willing to push the boundaries of the Constitution, if the Republican Party doesn't come in and stop him, I think this is this is feasible. This could actually happen.
Now, many Trump allies, including Steve Bannon, have pointed to the Constitution not using the word consecutive when defining presidential terms. Is that a loophole?
I think that's a pretty weak argument. I mean, it doesn't say anything about it having to be consecutive terms. And if you think about it as well from an originalist standpoint, right, a conservative standpoint, and you think about why do we even have the 22nd Amendment? It was because Franklin Delano Roosevelt served 4 terms in office or was elected 4 times, and people from both parties didn't like that idea. There had been many attempts since the founding of the Constitution to put a cap on presidential terms, and they did that in 1951.
Now, just a few minutes ago, I asked Republican Congressman David Kustoff if he would support Trump serving a third term. He didn't say yes, but he also didn't say no. What happens if the president tries any of these tactics?
Well, that interview I heard, and I think it's good news that he believes it would take a constitutional amendment to allow that. But if he got on the ballot, I don't know that the Supreme Court would kick him off. We saw this in the last election. I believe Section 3 of the 14th Amendment made him ineligible because of January 2021 and the insurrection. But the Supreme Court said, we're not going to stop the Republican Party from choosing who they want to be at the top of the ticket. So with lots of things that are happening with Donald Trump, the question is who is going to stand in the way of what sounds like an extra constitutional agenda here?